Thank you so much, Amit, for that introduction, and good afternoon to all the attendees who have joined us virtually, and a warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists. At the outset, I would like to thank NASSCOM for inviting me to moderate this panel that will deliberate on a very important and pertinent topic, which is co-creation, evolving business models for MSME to digitize in the new normal. So while digitization is the first step for any enterprise as they embark on their digital transformation journey, where you're trying to convert an analog or a physical format into digital, the next step obviously is going to be digitalization, where you're using that digitized data, where you're trying to transform some of your processes and business models. Then of course, the most important thing is the transformation which happens across the enterprise, across various functions, right? So it's always going to be a journey. The manufacturing sector obviously is very critical to India's GDP growth, and the MSMEs obviously form the backbone of our Indian economy. They contribute a lot to our manufacturing output, contribute a lot to our exports, generate a lot of employment, and you know, it's well known fact that the COVID-19 had a big impact on the MSME segment. And what really clearly emerged from the COVID scenario was that those industries, those companies which were very mature in their adoption of digital were very less impacted because of COVID. And those who were very early or not started their digital journey were very, very badly affected. Now, if you just look at you know, adoption of Industry 4.0, be it AI, IoT, AR, VR, all these digital technologies, the adoption of all these technologies within MSME has been very, very low. Very, very low from an India standpoint. And we have only seen some pockets of adoption in India. You know, for example, in the use cases around, say, monitoring of machines, trying to improve OEE, be it AI-based computer vision for predictive quality, maybe a little bit on energy management. And of course, because of the COVID situation, employee safety and health became important. So there is technology available where you can monitor the employee health, right? So while these use cases definitely would help in improving productivity, operational efficiency, quality, etc., and of course, it does have an impact on your bottom line, on your profitability. What we have assessed, you know, is that very little spend has been on creating demand, which will, you know, for example, improving revenues, improving customer experience, and especially in the discrete manufacturing segment. You know, so a lot of work needs to be done on that side, right, where you're trying to create demand for your products and services. Now, the question that one needs to ask is, can they leverage the power of digital tech like AI, IoT, where you can innovate around their business models to offer superior products and services, which clearly shows product and service differentiation and thereby improve customer experience. Now, as far as the MSMEs are concerned, they have two choices, right? So one option is to leverage skills within their organization where they can work on, you know, trying to come up with products and services that would be more tailor-made to their end customers. That's option one, which is obviously going to be very difficult given the fact that we do have this challenge of skills, right? So we just don't have the right level of digital skills to be able to embark on such kind of initiatives. The second option would be to leverage partners. And when you're talking about leveraging partners, I think it's good to, you know, kind of leverage the startup ecosystem that we have in India. We have what 12,500 plus tech startups in India, and I think I think we have more than 1,000 out of the 12,500 tech startups. There are more than 1,000 plus IoT startups. Quite a number of them are in the AI space. So I think it's a perfect blend where MSME can really co-create, co-innovate solutions with these startups, right? Because they bring in that technology, and the MSME is given that they have the shortage of skills. You know, it's a wonderful relationship that can, if nurtured properly, will really change the game for the MSME, so to speak, right? So to discuss this, we have a very diverse panel which represents both large, medium, and small industries, right? So the introductions are already done, and without further ado, I'm going to straight go ahead with the questions which I'm going to ask the panelists, and it's a very simple format. I'm just going to ask two set of questions to each of the panelists. in the first round, each of them will kind of share with all of us how they have been adopting digital, how it's improved their business, how it improved their business outcomes, etc. And the second part is in terms of how they have partnered with startups or any other partners in trying to come up with new business models that will enable them to provide better, superior customer experience. So let me start with Hemant. Hemant Shah from Navin Group. So Hemant, welcome to this panel. And Navin Group being a well-diversified company, 5 decades old, interest in logistics, manpower management, government presence across India. Can you briefly share with us about your group's digital journey? What are the benefits that you have seen after adopting digital?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. See, we are basically into logistics and O&M contracts. So we engage a lot of manpower. We have a lot of moving fleet on the road as well as in the ports and everywhere. So our major challenge is to control our operations remotely because we are present in different locations. So first of all, for the manpower, the biggest challenge was taking their attendance. So we have started a system of facial recognition attendance. Which is there is an app available, and it is available with geofencing. So we don't need to fill up the attendance. The person once he reaches the place where he's supposed to work, he has to just open the app and click his photograph. So his attendance, time, and everything will be recorded, and I will be getting on real-time attendance of each of my locations. So I have about 7-8 locations and over 1,500 people working. So real-time attendance I am getting authenticated. If a person wants to move out from the place, so he can't mark his attendance from his home. So this is the basic thing we have adopted for my attendance. We have a lot of heavy earth-moving equipments, and we consume about 2 lakh liters of fuel every month. So there the challenge was, pilferage of fuel and control of fuel. So we have installed RFID tags on all our equipments. We have a diesel browser with a RFID tag. So whenever the diesel browser is inserted into the tank, it will match the RFID tag. Only if the RFID tag matches, then only the diesel flow will start. And the entire thing is automated, and the data is online. So I will know right now where my browser is standing, how much diesel it has got, in which equipment it has dispensed, how much diesel. So sitting in my office in Ahmedabad, I can have that control. Another thing is we have installed fuel level sensors in the tanks. So we can, sitting here, I can know what is the amount of fuel in each of my equipment. And if there is a pilferage, it will show a big drop in the level. So these are the controls which we have adopted for our moving equipments, which are spread across the country. We are also into garments and sales. So there we have got fleet on street. So there we have adopted an app where the salesman is using a mobile phone. So we know in which shop he has gone. He has to punch the order of our whatever it takes from the shop only. So he cannot sit at home and punch the order. He has to go there. So his location will be tracked, at what time he was at the shop, what is the order taken by him. And so entire movement of his day is tracked sitting in my office. These are a few, we've done lots of things. We are using all smart sheets and other applications for collating data. But I thought these are things which I should share with the team. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right, thanks. Thanks, Hemant. So interesting use cases that you shared with us. I think in terms of saving cost, driving more efficiencies, wonderful set of use cases. Can you maybe touch upon something which will try to create a lot more demands? Yeah, like data being a strategic asset. Do you leverage customer data where you glean insights from them, trying to offer maybe some superior products or services, leveraging the power of data? Any work on that front, Hemantji?
We are actually not into that business. We have a limited sets of clients, so we don't really have that kind of requirement.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks, Hemant. Let's move on to Radhika. Radhika, welcome to the panel. And Radhika, your organization is one of the largest precision equipment manufacturers in the world, right? You all make encoders, inspection machines, not just making for India, but for the world, right? So can you tell us, how your organization has implemented digital, one from a factory standpoint, and also these inspection machines? I understand these are connected. So can you share with the audience some of the use cases where you have deployed digital, Radhika?
When I joined this organization about 6 years back, we had stagnated. Like I'm second generation entrepreneur. My father was running this company and it was being run. See, I'm probably the representative of small scale industries. There are billions of companies like us all over India. When I took over, the company had plateaued and there was an urgent need to innovate and to grow. And when I started thinking about it, I realized that we had already embarked on the journey of digitization. In the sense, we had Tally, etc. We also had a customized ERP system developed for us. But we had done the classical mistake that I think many small industries do. We do go ahead with digitization due to peer pressure or because we feel, yeah, this is something I got to do. It's going to get me benefited. We get it implemented, but then we don't maintain a live relationship with the data. There are at the back end lot of factors which you have to keep on updating so that the results that you get are perfect. Like for example, in the case of ERP system, you have to keep on updating the supplier details, the lead dates, kind of thing. So I realized that lot of data was there, but it had become stagnant. It had become redundant. So our journey in digitization started in a very small way, but I feel it has helped us a lot, particularly in COVID season, because because of the COVID pandemic, I mean everything, all the supply chain got disrupted, and because we give, otherwise what used to happen, we will get a material plan from our systems, but then we will again add a human factor. We will again sit on that plan and put the ideas which are in our head, the formulas which are in our head. So we were not actually using digitization, even if it was there. So we learned how to use it effectively by staying in tune with our inputs. And coming to your second question, where you said, how do we use digitization in our inspection machines? Our machines have to often talk to the central server. If you think from the user's point of view, he has to know which parts got inspected on the machines and what was the statistical result of his quality. So we do give our inspection machines with this facility. Unfortunately, like you said, we don't find much demand for it from SME sector. But interestingly, there are one or two projects which I hope will grow big, where we are working with some startups for digitization. One very interesting thing is we are developing one particular equipment for railways. Whenever a railway passes on a bridge, the bridge undergoes vibrations. It will move in a sinusoidal way. And amplitude of this wave needs to be monitored. Because if it goes beyond the safety limit, then they have to look at the construction of the bridge and there are bearings, etc. They got to have a look at it. So we are developing a vibration measuring instrument, contactless, for such kind of bridges. And this is where we are using IoT, where the basic thing that we are adding in this is the instrument is battery enabled so that it can be placed at remote bridges. And when the battery goes below a certain level, the nearest station will get a signal that the battery has to be charged. Because you are planning that this railway is going to pass and I'm going to measure the vibrations. And you never even understand that the equipment has become dead. So this is one area. Another is our upcoming product of our own that we have decided to call as i360. It is nothing but a digital eye which sees your assembly and it identifies the missing components. In case of a chassis, suppose say there are 32 screws which need to be fitted. This i360 will identify that there are 32 screws which are tightened to the extent, it will understand it from depth, and all 32 are in place. So it is basically a first glance inspection system, which we believe will be very popular, very effective in use. And well, that's been our journey.
That's fantastic, Radhika. I'll come back to you in round two when we talk about your engagement with the startups, right? So moving to you, Piyush. So Piyush, I must tell you this: about a week or two back, Economic Times had an event, and where I had the chance to hear your CEO and MD, Dipali Goenka, and she was talking about the whole digital journey of Welspun Group. So you're fairly mature, so maybe you can talk to us about how Welspun Group. Interestingly, Piyush, when we spoke, you said that given that you'll have multiple group companies, each one is a small and medium-sized enterprise in its own right? So can you share with us about some of the projects that you're doing from a digital standpoint and what kind of benefits that you operate?
Sure. Thanks, Sunil. And good afternoon to everybody. And thanks for having me on this panel. And I think so far what Hemant ji and Radhika ji were sharing is quite enlightening, when you see those real life examples that how the things are changing and how everything is so much aligned to the whole business problems, right? So I think that's a very important thing, that we have to solve business problems. And that is where the whole digital is taking on a big wave from that perspective. So coming to the Welspun Group, of course, as a group, we are pretty big. I represent the home textile sector, which predominantly contributes almost $1 billion in revenues overall globally every year. From that perspective, it is quite large. But when you start breaking it up, you'll see 90% plus of our revenues does come from the exports that we do to the major markets and the major retailers, especially in the area of towels, bed sheets, and recently on the flooring solutions. But when you further declassify us and look at the different federation, there are multiple different units, multiple different companies that operate in different specialty areas. So we've got an advanced textile setup, which basically typically works on making things like the wet wipes, the cotton wipes, right? So that is something which is, we are contract manufacturers in our right. So what you see, all these Dove and all the baby wipes, so they are made by us. But of course, the label is done by Unilever because that's Dove, right? But we are into that space also. So if we have also started to work in the area of mask and the surgical mask equipment, again, those are those kind of a nascent times when you start something which is small. Then we got very small industry setups where we are looking at promoting the rural population of women by the never spun. So these are all handmade fabric and soft furnishing that we're doing. And that is a kind of a, the small setups that we have. But of course, when you integrate it to the larger umbrella, so everybody does reap the benefit of, the overall scale of the organization. So, and I joined Welspun Group last year. It's been almost a year for me here. And when I see, industry as a textile industry overall, I come from an automotive background. We have all seen different retail, banking and all. They're a lot more advanced in terms of, using the technology, using the whole digitization part of it. Textile as an industry has been a little bit behind in terms of the curve. But in terms of the technologies that we have implemented from our, core systems processes, whether it is SAP and all, and the way we use it, is phenomenal, the kind of a scale that we have built on that part. But COVID changed it all, I think, for all of us. And so it did for Welspun also. And for us, it was, multiple aspects of digitization, which enabled us through during those tough times. A couple of those examples being that, of course, a lot of our employees, like all of the other companies, have to work from home. So we have to start adopting digital tools like all of us have got, like we are on Zoom right now, we use Microsoft Teams. So that's a very basic level of employee collaboration, which we started. But I think the challenge came in when we interact with the customers, right? Because customers have to have multiple interaction points with us, especially our global customers. So there we started developing some kind of tools for them. So, one of the tools is the whole virtual factory inspections, right? So we enabled those collaborative platforms where we have, the third party, people looking at through collaborative tools, looking at and doing the inspections. We started the virtual factory tours also, which were there, which really helped our customers to, have that confidence that we are moving ahead, we are in track. And, in fact, in the COVID times, as our is more export oriented business, so the demand also didn't slow down much. So we did have impact on, let's say, the Q1 of last year. But if you see from Q2 onwards, in fact, the last year was best in terms of the company's overall history from a revenue perspective, because we ran and we are still running on almost full capacities because the demand of the home itself went up. So the consumer demand went up. We were able to do it. There were multiple interventions that we used in our factory and shop floor, like I was just telling you, the whole virtual inspections. Now, if you see the overall, the way we look at the ecosystem, we have divided that into 4 parts. The very first part when we look at is the whole customer side of engagement, right? So how do we digitize that part? So when I talk about customer, there are 2 parts. One is the whole B2B side of the customer, which are our major customers. I was giving you examples about how did we use virtual inspections, how did we use, those kind of visits to the shop floor and everything. But one of the key interventions that we did, we created a virtual showroom also for our customers. So what happens in our kind of an industry, twice in a year, we have these market weeks where, we go and, a lot of the retailers come, you show your design, you show your collections and all that. For that, we used to basically actually ship off our product samples and all to our different offices like New York and all, and there the customer used to come in, but that was not possible. So we came up with the industry first approach and to launch a virtual showroom where I think the last 2 market weeks are completely on virtual showroom. So we do ship some samples to our customers, but then we get into this whole virtual showroom, which is nothing but a very 3D oriented view where they come in, we present to them. It's like a kind of a complete virtual cockpit where you can go and experience the different texture, different fabrics, different styles, what's going to come in this season. And that really build that kind of a confidence and, continue the sustenance of the business for us. And on the B2C side, I think that is again where we have changed our gears. We have an ambition to be a global player in the e-commerce. And I'm sure Sunil, you would have heard Dipali saying a lot about the whole e-commerce story that we're building upon, because we do believe that we are in a very unique position, being a completely vertically integrated company, right? So we start right the time when we source the cotton till the time we come with the finished products. So we do have a big scope in that area. And today, of course, though we supply to the major retailers and their private labels are something which are manufactured by us, we are already making inroads in multiple markets through our own brands. So in India, we are already with the brands of Spaces and Welspun, which most of us do use, and it is quite well recognized. But that has been a purely an omni-channel way, right? The whole modern trade, traditional trade, the distributor view. And of course, there's a lot of digitization, which we did there. Like Hemant was saying, in terms of when our salesmen are moving there, how do we really get those orders? How do we do that geofencing? How do we really do the sales planning properly based on the SKUs which are there in those shop-in-shop places which are there? But I think the global e-commerce is the way forward for us. And this year has been a big play for us. We are expanding our capabilities in the e-commerce space, where we are going directly to the consumers. We are playing both on the marketplaces like Amazon and all, and across multiple markets, predominantly in US, UK, and India. We have created our own set of brands. We have done extensive study of consumer segments, what do they prefer and all. And the next 2 years, you will see a lot of focus moving on to that whole e-commerce perspective. How do we really build that capability? Now, to build that capability, again, there's a further dissection of the technologies that you need, right? And that is where the whole digital aspect comes in. And what we also focused was, how do we have a single global architecture from a technology perspective? There are multiple components which goes behind the scene, behind those websites, behind those marketplaces, the way we manage the products, the way we basically list the products, the way we manage the orders, the returns, the whole, the reconciliation of accounts and everything. So there are multiple of those set of technologies. So we also have invested to come with a single global architecture to get those technologies intact and, completely on that journey. So that was the first focus, the customer-centric view. The second view is the entire supply chain, which is also a very backbone.
Sorry, Puesh, we are running out of time, so I'll probably come back to you in round 2 if time permits, because we need to finish the second round.
I understand.
Yeah, but interesting insights that you shared, and since you talked about doing direct to consumer, and you're also on the marketplaces, I guess you have a lot of data now. So maybe the next step would be, how do you personalize products and services for your customers based on all the data that you've gathered and the insights that you're getting from there. I'll move on to Radhika. Radhika, since you talked about engaging with startups, can you share with us examples of how you work with startups, especially in the co-creation and trying to build products or services for your end customers? Can you share some experiences with us, Radhika?
To be very honest, we were approached by these startups offering their services, and then we were very much intrigued by them because we as a MSME, we struggle with retaining good talent. I mean, as is the pain of each. This is the pain that's experienced by each and every MSME, that we do attract good talent, but the talent stays with us for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then usually they leave for a bigger organization. So it has really become difficult for us to retain talent. So we were also looking at subcontracting literal chunk of our further developments, which is something that we have never done earlier. The entire focus has been doing everything in-house. But this was a new thought for us, and we were approached by these companies, which were very agile companies. I mean, these were just, as I would call, fresh out of college, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, but I did not know because there was not so much of experience. But they were so disciplined and there was so much passion in them, and they knew what they were talking about. Again, for us, like I said, we are doing this project for railways, for bridges. It means going to these various bridges and trying it. These guys are, they so much want to do it. They're so much excited with the idea, and they're so flexible. I think that was the biggest positivity that they got to the project. Another one that we are trying to develop, like I told you about I360, where it identifies errors in the assembly. We would like to go one step further in that and go for AI. Suppose I have to check thickness of the weld, then I should be able to give a range and quality of that. And AI, through what's acceptable or not, will develop its own algorithm and pass it or not pass it, rather than comparing it. Right now, what we are doing, we have a model, which is model A, which is perfect, and we compare incoming everything with this model A. With AI, this A will be able to have variance, just like human eye does. So for that, we are trying to partner with one startup. We are in talks with them. And I feel this is an excellent opportunity that has come up for us SMEs. If we support them, these guys have enormous talent, enormous this will to do something. It's refreshing.
Yeah, amazing, Radhika. You talked about flexibility, right? I think the ability to come back quickly with solutions,
Yes.
Obviously makes a huge impact, especially when you're trying to get something to market very quickly, right? So, Hemant, how about your experiences, Navin Group's experiences working with startups? Hemant.
See, basically, as far as we are concerned, we have been working with startups mainly in technology, software side, because the hardware is actually procured from outside. So we are doing the software integration with the startups. Because it is a new thing, it is challenging, but ultimately they work hard, and I believe that they give results. So I am very happy. All the projects what we have been doing are with startups, and they have done a pretty good job.
That is mainly from, but in terms of on the business side, have you engaged on the business side, trying to work with a startup, trying to see whether you can co-create something? Is that something which is
that is what I'm talking. All the solutions which I had mentioned earlier,
they're all through okay.
So they have been done with startups. They are not done with any established players.
They're all done with startups. And how has been your experience, Hemant, in terms of them coming back to you quickly with solutions? Any learning?
That is what I'm saying. Had I tried a larger company who's organized player, they would have not, done it, because there were lots of trials and error, and it took a long time, for calibrations and everything, which I believe that the larger players would have not really worked so well. So because they also wanted to get a new entry and they wanted to learn something, they were much better off than the larger organized players.
Interesting. Okay, I think it's a message for everyone that definitely leverage the startup ecosystem, the kind of technology they bring, flexibility, agility, and the spirit which comes from the startups wanting to do solving problems, right? So I think that's the message that would perhaps go out to all the MSMEs, and let's hope that the MSMEs engage with startups even more. Puesh, how about Welspun's group's engagement with the startups?
Yeah, so I think we being an entrepreneurial firm, we are very firm believer of startups, and I think we engage very, very closely with them. I would just say that, our core applications, like from a technology perspective, might be supported by some established players, but most of our digital solutions, whatever we have done recently, are all through startups. And currently, when we talk about, our industry 4.0 strategy, what we have seen is that we got some startups who are very good in a particular domain, let's say, right? And now we are kind of working with them to have a strategy that why don't we basically co-create with them and try to build some customized solutions which are really very relevant from a textile industry perspective also. And we do have a vision that if we are able to create it, then we might be able to go out jointly along with them to basically even look at other probable, opportunities with them. So that's a little bit a long shot, but strategically what we're trying to do is that we want to bring our expertise and their expertise together for this co-creation. And I think that's a very powerful model. And I think one we need to also see, Sunil, is that, like when we talk about MSMEs, so just see the power of MSMEs, right? Today, when we have a forum like NASSCOM, and when we bring MSMEs together, so there will be certain solutions which might be quite applicable for multiple MSMEs also. So if we bring an aggregation of those typical standard use cases or problems where we aggregate them, and then we have on other side the model where we have some startups which we are working, then that whole power of MSMEs from both the sides come together. So because in that case the scale happens, right? So instead of, let's say, one single company, let's say a set of 15, 20 small, medium, mid-sized companies coming together, maybe from a complementary space or a non-complementary, but with those common use cases, then can really benefit from each other. And that kind of takes the entire ecosystem up, and it's a win-win for everybody. So we are very firm believer of co-creation, and we are investing a lot in that. One of the things that we are starting now is on the blockchain, which of course, if you see as a technology, it's something which is more established, but we have started and we have kind of been very engaged with a startup for last 1 year. And now we are kind of moving ahead on that program completely with them, co-creating it.
Interesting that you brought that point about how trying to create a platform where you can connect the MSMEs. The MSMEs bring the problem statements, and then the startups trying to solve these problems. I think that's something definitely which obviously needs to be speeded up. I think there have been attempts in the past to do that, but perhaps a lot more fillip needs to be given to that. But Puesh, one quick question again. Any specific challenges that you faced in engaging with startups?
So I think the couple of things is, in terms of the time window, because see, it depends on both sides. When you as a larger enterprise engage with a startup, so the agility, at the pace which a startup would expect you to move might not be there, right? So, that is something we have to improve. That's our challenge, where we need to give that agility back to the startup ecosystem. I think, and the other thing that we see from a startup ecosystem is, they come with a very niche kind of a use case focused kind of a capabilities, right? So for them, we need to also give them kind of a view where sometimes there is a struggle that, when you bring your solution in a larger ecosystem, it cannot just run on its own. It has to be integrated with a more larger ecosystem. Then only it is sustainable. Otherwise, I don't want to bring that whole perspective to make a showcase of a solution where, it is just for the show window, but it is not used. So I think that is the learning and the challenge which comes sometimes. But I think now we have kind of learned it, so that when we engage very early on, we bring those aspects that, when we are co-creating and you're getting something from us, we do look into their capabilities of integrating with the larger ecosystem. And also on the second part, when you look at the architecture, how scalable is the architecture? Because you can't just do it once. You have to look at the reusability and how you can take it to the next level. Otherwise, it will just be a very small thing, which is not good. It has to be a more scalable architecture. So I think those are the two areas where, we have kind of learned it a little bit hard way, but now we know that, okay, that is something we need to look into it.
Thanks so much, Puesh. So with that, we have completely run out of time. It's been a fascinating discussion, but wonderful insights from each of the panelists. All of them have, started their digital journey, and I think what has clearly emerged is that digital is just not a nice to have, but it's a strategic necessity now for survival and growth. And I think the message that is going out to the MSMEs is that if you have not started, it's not too late. They can still make that start. The option is now for them to work with startups or with any other partners, because attempting to do something on your own might have its own challenges, but one can definitely leverage the wonderful startup ecosystem that we have in India. NASSCOM supports quite a few of them. So with that, I'm going to bring the session to a close, and thank you so much, Radhika, Puesh, and Hemant for your time, and over to you, Amit.
Thanks, Sunil.
Thank you, Sunil, for kind of leading this discussion, and thanks a lot, Hemantji, Puesh, and Radhika. This was really great to kind of listen to you on the specific areas where you are working at. So I think this will definitely kind of give a lot of directions to the industries, and it's also very kind of great to hear about your experience of working with the startups that, and especially Hemantji, like what you talked about, that some of the way that startups did the iteration, and which basically made all of those possible, wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So I think these are some of the very encouraging experiences that we heard from you, and I think it will give a lot of motivation to the MSME sector here to work very closely with the startups and then co-create the solution. So thanks again, and it was really a pleasure to have you here and listening to you.
Thanks, Amit.
Thank you.